Welcome, travelers. We're aware that your journey was difficult, but prepare to have your questions answered, for you have been granted an audience with the Masters of Modern.
And welcome back to Masters of Modern. I'm your host, Alex Kessler, here with my co-host, Ben Bateman.
What's up, everybody? We're back. It's the last part of our set review, but more importantly today than the last part of our set review,
we have a preview.
We have a preview card.
A little sneak preview as we discuss what the preview is for the video people. The card is called Brought Back, and it's white. Yeah, we'll talk about whatever else it does in a second.
Yeah, we're very excited to talk about it with you guys. So this is the Masters of Modern podcast. As Alex mentioned, we talk about Modern on this show. We've been doing this show for 4.5 years.
220 episodes.
It's crazy how long we've been doing it. And because today we have so much to get through, I think we should just quickly give a couple of our briefest shout-outs and then get straight into the topic.
Yeah, so new things. We're actively now, the Discord is becoming more of a live part of how we do things, so definitely go check it out. There'll be a link in the episode and also, obviously, below. It is also, if you are a Patreon member, you get exclusive access to kind of our deck list dump area, as well as the Patreon discussion section of our Discord, so you can see we come up with weird, dumb deck ideas pretty much daily accidentally, and we'll now make an effort to make sure we post those deck ideas into that Discord thread. So if you want access to that, make sure to become a patron, and you're automatically added to that area.
Every patron at the $5 level is going to get access to all those deck lists. So like Alex and I have been talking about this. You guys heard last week on the show, I was texting him about this Goblin Engineer Tide Hollow Sculler Mir Superior build that's really cool. We talked about it last night on the YouTube, which is the other thing I wanted to mention.
So everyone with the $2 or more gets Discord access.
Cool.
$5 gets access to the Lifelinker code and the unedited episode. So we're going to start releasing the raw, unedited audio that has all of the infighting and swear words and movie conversations, and all of that stuff is going to be put into a raw, full file that gets added. And if you have a $5 better donator to the Patreon, you get access to that.
And so the last thing,
Lifelinker code.
Quick shout out that's brand new before we get into the card, and you guys will hear all the other Patreon and Twitter and all that stuff's in a later roll. But right now, I want to tell everybody here, because of the live streaming feature on YouTube that is being pushed so heavily now, and the fact that the YouTube channel we are building here, which if you're not subscribed, please subscribe now, has been getting a lot of attention twice now, and probably 3 times by the time this goes up. I have started to go live. Alex is going to do it as well. We're literally talking about setting up a camera, talking to you guys, interacting, having a Q&A, answering questions. I am literally coming up with deck ideas weekly and just kind of going through those deck ideas as we just sit there, and I hear your guys' feedback, and I share ideas. Somebody donated in the super chat on my show last night, and I teched his full deck on the show. And I actually wanted to bring it up with Alex because it's like a Dredgevine, like Hollow One hybrid. It's really cool.
And it's kind of like, it's a town hall version of the podcast where you get a one-on-one, interact with us, and hang out. Last thing on Patreon, we have a few Patrons that we're going to start shouting out. So if you're a Patreon member, you have access to being your name shout out. I have them saved somewhere. I've taken so many screenshots since then.
Oh my God.
All right. We got Keith W. New Year, Michael Petros, Brian Nordic, and that's it. Those are the 3 for today. They're the new Patreons from last week.
Thank you guys for joining the Patreon.
Finger guns. Ben's going to salute you because that's what they do on the Action Podcast.
Yeah, that was a
We got to find our own thing.
We'll come up with something cool. Yeah, we always say we salute you.
We are not worthy.
Something cool.
Okay.
Yeah.
Figure out. Well, let us know, people of the internet, what you would like us to do for our patrons in the shout out moment. All right, you ready to talk about cards?
Most importantly, I think you guys want to hear about our preview cards.
Yeah, so we've gotten a free preview card from Wizards. Thank you so much, Wizards of the Coast. We always appreciate all of this. The last card we got to do was Kess. If you see behind us, we normally print out giant versions of cards, especially when they're brand new cards. And this is our card. So
it's a brand new card.
We're gonna roll it out like a scroll.
It's a slow roll.
All right. All right. So the card is called Brought Back. It's white. And we're going to roll in, show you the artwork here.
Let's see how much of this we can actually see.
It's like a shapeshifter. It looks like kind of the old Quickling art.
You guys can't see me, but I'm excited about it just the same as you.
And the text reads, choose up to 2 target permanent cards in your graveyard that were put there from the battlefield this turn. Return them to the battlefield tapped. It is an instant rare, and the art is by Mitchell Malloy.
I'm going to leave this up here for just a second.
So you guys get a look of it?
Probably after this part is done, Marshall will then he'll actually take a screenshot of the card and throw it up here so you can just read it a little more consistently.
Yeah, so we're gonna get rid of the scroll, put it over here, because that'll be there for people. Thank you for the power of editing.
Choose up to 2 permanent cards in your graveyard that were put there from the battlefield this turn. Return them to the battlefield tapped. That's an instant for white, as Alex just read. So, a couple things this brings to mind. This feels in some ways like it's a throwback a little bit to Second Sunrise.
It's baby
right?
Second Sunrise. I was debating for this preview episode to do a like sketch where I would like do a cooking show and I'd be cooking eggs for people and teach them how. But it'd be like, so now we're going to do a little dab of, reshape and maybe a little bit of this ghost quarter into here, into this egg dish. And, so sadly, we're not eating any, we're trying to keep healthy. So we've cut the egg yolk. So we're only eating egg whites now. So no longer a Second Sunrise, and it's now a...
Brought back.
Yeah.
The name of our egg dish.
The name of our egg dish. The brought back omelet.
Yes, the brought back
omelet.
So, that is our preview card for today, guys. So let's talk about a couple of things that you can do with this. Now, the fact that they enter the battlefield tapped, unfortunately, does negate the ability to use it in conjunction with something like a Lotus Bloom or a Mox Tantalite. It means you can bring them back, but you can't use them the same turn.
Yeah, you don't get the kind of go off. Though, I still think that's really powerful. Like being able to get 2 Mox. Yeah, I think that's something that you can do to set up your next turn.
But they still have to have gone there from the battlefield, which is tough. Correct. So it's like that. I don't know if that's the angle where this card becomes the most abusable.
Sure.
I think what's interesting about this card is that, first of all, it's 2 CMC and it's an instant, right? So like your ability to use this in Modern to just get value, to just create a 2-for-1 is totally there.
Sure.
Like if there's any kind of a deck that just wants to sacrifice multiple things to get value, if there's any kind of a deck where you're removing counters from something, or let's say it's a Planeswalker, you ultimate or something like that, there's a lot of situations where this card for 2 mana is going to generate an enormous amount of value. I can see a situation where maybe you lose a Planeswalker by bringing it down to 0, and maybe you sacrifice something that you can sacrifice to draw a card off of it. Then you play this, you get back another thing to draw another card, get your Planeswalker back. It seems like it's a lot of value for 2 mana.
I mean, I think just fetch lands is where I'm like kind of most excited. But
Yeah.
I've been talking about for basically since Modern Horizons, like figuring out a Abzan colored combo lands deck. So like taking advantage of Ayula's influence and really the fact that neither Reliquary is really good in a lands deck because it can sacrifice lands to bring them into play and keep going off. And this lets you kind of take advantage of that even further, being able to put those lands right back into play.
I mean, the simple idea of a deck that is holding this up on turn 2 with 2 fetch lands, maybe you take whatever hit they give you on turn 1, you play a second fetch land, you crack them both, you play this, and you put in 2 lands end of turn. So
like
then
that jumps you pretty far ahead.
You go up to 5 lands on turn 3. I mean, Modern is pretty chock full of ways that you can get ahead on mana, but in white, that's pretty unique that you don't have to rely on green to do it.
Right.
You can do it in a white deck. You can get way ahead. So, I mean, if you think about, like, there are a lot of white permanents that cost 5 mana, 4 and 5 mana, that are really strong. Mm-hmm. You can think about all kinds of stuff. I mean, imagine if you're playing some sort of scape shift variant where a card like... what's the Hour of Promise? Is that the card? 1 green, 4 colorless. Gets you 2 lands into play.
Sure. Yeah.
Right? Like, the idea that can accelerate you 2 lands, right? And it costs 5 mana. Well, you can play your Hour of Promise on turn 3 in a green-white Scape Shift deck. You can literally just crack lands, put them into play, hit, right? Like, you can get way, 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 way ahead. So I think there's a lot of really interesting ways to combine this. Now, one of the places that I think it's the coolest, and I mentioned this to you off camera, people are always trying to find ways to make Isochron Scepter decks work. And
it is an instant.
Right. Well, I'm just saying, I mean, how many times have we talked about like, oh, that would be cool with Scepter, but as we all know, Scepter is really more of a 4-drop than a 2-drop.
Sure.
You can get blown out so easily in Modern, but this with an Isochron Scepter does make it so that your deck can just kind of go bananas. If you can get this effect every single turn, it seems very hard to lose in a deck that's situated to take advantage of it.
Sure.
Right. I mean, even if you just think about like things that you're sacrificing for value, like whether they're creatures like your flying 1/1s that can, your Curse Catcher Flyers, cards like that. If you're doing something stupid like I would want to do with like a Void Mage Prodigy, where you just have like a living counter spell on the battlefield, you can sack it. Then end of turn, you can activate this to get it back. There are locks and things you can set up with this card that I think are pretty powerful.
The question is there the thing to really be looking for is cards that enter the battlefield that you sacrifice. Like the actual eggs cards part of eggs are good with this because you can still sacrifice those for the draw card effects. You don't need to necessarily have them come into play tapped. So
this is a great place to start. The card Ojutai's Command. Never deemed playable, good enough for Modern, right? That's always been a card that, like, I think that card's really cool. we've talked about before that card has value. It's powerful. Like 4 life, a card countering a spell, getting back a creature that costs 2 or less. There's a lot of ways to take advantage of that card.
Right.
But at 4 mana, it's a little bit oppressive.
Yeah, I think the issue is that it's not as good as Cryptic Command, and decks aren't trying to play more than the 4 Cryptic Command. Like, decks are already trying to convince themselves to play all 4 Cryptic Commands.
But that costs 4 to get effectively 2 for 1 value. This costs 2 to get 2 for 1 value.
Sure.
And it's also an instant. Now, in a blue-white deck that wants to get value out of anything from a fetch land to a Snapcaster Mage, there's a lot of ways to take advantage of this.
And getting back Planeswalkers out of those decks, you're getting back, you're right. There's definitely, as blue-white control decks become more permanent focus, this does take advantage of that.
Even just, what if it's up to 2 permanents, right? So even if, what if you're not going for 2, but they do everything that they can to finally get rid of your Teferi, and then end of turn, instead of countering the spell, you just cast white and get Teferi back.
Right.
And then untap, I got my spell back. The fact that you can activate Teferi, untap 2, holding open double white to cast this.
Right. Well, and you can even do it the turn it comes. Like, you don't have to do it at the end of their turn. You can. This is an instant, but like with the Planeswalker, who cares if it comes into play tapped? You just automatically get to activate it on your turn. So
yeah, no, it's
you can tap out for Teferi, they can answer it, and then on your turn for 2 mana, you can bring Teferi back and then have 5 mana untapped.
Well, it has to have gone to the battlefield this turn, correct? So on their turn, they would handle it, and then you would do a response.
Yeah.
But you still untap your legal lands open on their turn with their sorcery
Teferi
speed.
keeps the lands open to be able to do it.
Yeah. So I actually just think, like, if you're going to evaluate the power level of a card in Modern, the easiest thing to do is just look at the CMC, right? Like, basically, we can talk ourselves all day into how good some of these Modern Horizons cards are, and they are. There are some really cool cards, but if the thing costs more than 2 mana, your ability to use it effectively gets a little bit more difficult. And so anytime you have something that's instant speed, that costs 2, there's a real opportunity to use it. And I think people are going to come up with really awesome ways to use this card to do really powerful things. It feels like this card, on first glance, being double white, is maybe a little bit less sexy, but it's not. This card's good. There's going to be very cool stuff.
Yeah, I'm very interested to see. I do think the best place to use it in is an eggs deck, but that's taking advantage of less of the like Mox or Lotus side of that equation and more on the side of the other halves. And
I think the last place to talk about is, so many times I have talked about the interaction of, behind me, Claim Fame, or a card like Unearth with Snapcaster Mage. I always love the idea that you can unearth your Snapcaster, targeting Unearth to get something else back. That's always like sort of chains a lot of value. This allows you to do something similar. You can block with a Snapcaster Mage, cast this, get back Snapcaster, retarget it, sack a couple fetch lands, get all kinds of crazy value. You need 4 mana and done. Like, the value you can generate off of this card, I think, is pretty bonkers. Another card that I really like the idea of using with this and kind of in the same shell is that new 2/1 Wizard, the one that has a Hideaway, where you get a card when it leaves the battlefield.
Sure.
Where it's on the battlefield, maybe you've already done the Hideaway trick, you block, it goes to the graveyard, you play this, it comes back, you get to Hideaway again, you get the first card back. You can really kind of set up a very cool chain at low CMCs to really take advantage. So I'm excited about this card, genuinely.
Yeah.
This feels like I'll brew with this, I think.
It's cool how great M20 has looked so far, right? I mean, we're pretty much in the middle of the first week. Like, you guys are seeing this, we're recording this on Thursday, so at this point, we don't know what you guys have seen between now and then, but so far, cards have been really exciting.
Yeah.
I mean, my one complaint is it's just like, we're about to go into the last half of our Modern Horizons review, and by the time we're done with the M20 reviews, I'll be reviewing, like, out of 15 episodes, 20 of them will be review episodes.
Well, I think what's going to happen is this episode's going to go up.
And I know that I did that backwards.
This episode's going to go up, right? Then we're going to go to Seattle, which you guys are watching this after Seattle, so we'll have recorded a live podcast in
that
Seattle.
Episode was so good. All you guys missed out.
Which I think the episode, hopefully we'll be able to keep the audio and video. We're not totally sure how it's going to work, but
sure.
I imagine we'll be able to post it as our episode for the week. But the idea is that we're going to be doing an episode on basically 5 to 10 cards you can ban in Modern and 5 to 10 cards we want to unban, is the idea now. Maybe it'll change between now and then.
Yeah, I think actually we're ranking all of the cards that are banned and their likelihood to be unbanned, and then we're going to talk about 5 cards we would put on a ban list. Yeah.
So some ban conversation is what the episode will turn out to be. We have to finish the production on it.
That's a conversation that's really hot right now in Modern because
the last 2 sets.
Hogak is terrifying, and before Hogak was printed,
Neoform got printed.
Well, War of the Spark. Like, there was 5 decks that people were talking about banning cards out of, and then Modern Horizons came out.
And we'll have to see what M20 does to the format, because it does seem like it has a lot of powerful cards in it. But anyway, that episode will post, and so then by the time that posts, when we come back, I think we will literally start our M20 review the next week.
Well, so I will say, so people don't worry ahead of time, I think we're going to mix up how we do reviews and go back to an older format. So we're not doing 6 videos per set. We'll kind of go back to aiming to do 1, and we'll have more announcements to make as we get closer to our M20 review on how we're going to do that. But I think that just 12 episodes of content is becoming a little bit tiresome
I like
for
the
both
idea
you
of a
guys
long-
and us. Unless you guys really push hard right now on the internet that we should just continue doing reviews the way we're doing it, having 4 episodes per set.
I would say that's a great suggestion. So if you're watching, click like, subscribe, all the things. But in the comments specifically, leave below. Do you guys like the set reviews? Do you feel like hearing us go through so many cards, card by card, is the content you're looking for on this channel? Or would you be happier if it was 1, maybe 2 videos tops, as opposed to the 3 to 4 hour plus videos that we're doing? It allows us to do less interesting things, interview shows with pros and things like that when we do this. But we want to give you guys the content you want. So let us know what you want.
Thank you for your attention. See you later, alligator.